I'm Myra. I'm 30 years old, and 2 weeks ago, on my birthday, my mother gave me a gift I'll remember for the rest of my life. Picture this: 40 guests, a five-star restaurant, candlelight reflecting off a birthday cake. Then my mother takes the microphone and announces that I was adopted for tax reasons, that I was never truly family, and that 30 years of trying to belong meant nothing. My sister laughed openly. My father couldn't even meet my eyes. What none of them knew was that I had an envelope in my purse, an envelope from my grandmother, and what it contained would send my mother fleeing from her own party before the night was over. Before I go on, if you enjoy stories like this, please like and subscribe, only if you genuinely want to know what happened next. And tell me where you're watching from by dropping your city and local time in the comments. Now let me take you back 1 month earlier to the evening when I received a phone call that changed everything. It was just before 8 on a Thursday night. I was still at my desk at Harrison and Cole Architecture, reviewing renovation blueprints that wouldn't matter in 48 hours. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. Boston area code. I almost ignored it. Most unknown calls are spam, but something made me answer. Miss Anderson. The voice was calm and professional. My name is Theodore Whitman. I was your grandmother's attorney. I straightened in my chair. Grandma Grace had passed away 6 months earlier. We'd held the funeral, read the will, and said our goodbyes. Why was her lawyer calling now? There's a matter I need to discuss with you, he said, in person. It concerns documents your grandmother left specifically for you. I don't understand. The estate was already settled. This is separate, he replied after a pause. Your grandmother left clear instructions that no one else in your family should know about this conversation. She was very specific. My heart started racing. Grandma Grace was the only person in my family who ever made me feel like I truly belonged. She'd squeezed my hand at family dinners when Patricia made her subtle remarks. Once, when I was crying in her garden, she whispered, "You belong here more than you know, sweetheart. One day you'll understand." I never had. When can we meet? I asked. Tomorrow morning at 9. I'll text you the address. After the call ended, I sat alone in my dark office for a long time. Grandma Grace had kept secrets. Secrets meant only for me. Part of me was afraid of what I might learn. A bigger part needed answers. That night, I went back to my apartment, the small one-bedroom I rented by myself, because living with family had never really been an option. My phone buzzed again. The family group chat. Patricia Anderson, my mother, or rather the woman who raised me, had sent a message. Big news. We're throwing Myra a 30th birthday dinner at the Sterling. Saturday the 15th, 7 p.m., everyone's invited. I read it 3 times. The Sterling was one of Boston's most exclusive restaurants. In 30 years, my parents had never thrown me anything like that. For my 18th birthday, I got a quiet family dinner, a grocery store cake, and a card with nothing written inside except "Happy Birthday." That same year, Jenna turned 15 and had a pool party with 30 friends, a DJ, and a professional photographer. I remembered sitting at my own birthday dinners, watching Patricia introduce guests. This is Jenna, our daughter, and this is Myra. That pause, small but intentional, right before my name. I'd heard it countless times. I stared at Patricia's message. Why now? Why this sudden generosity? It felt wrong, like finding cash on the street and knowing there had to be a condition attached. Still, a quiet, hopeful voice whispered, "Maybe she's finally trying. Maybe this time is different." I replied, "Wow, thank you so much. I'm really surprised." Patricia responded immediately, "You deserve it, sweetheart." She had never called me sweetheart before. I put my phone down and stared at the ceiling. The next day, I would meet with Grandma Grace's lawyer. Something told me I needed to know what was in those documents before I walked into any celebration Patricia organized. Theodore Whitman's office smelled of old leather and polished mahogany. He looked exactly as you'd expect. Silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, and a firm, deliberate handshake. "Please sit." He placed a large envelope on the desk between us. It was cream-colored, sealed with wax, and stamped with Grandma Grace's initials. G.A. "Your grandmother prepared this 5 years ago," he said. "She was in excellent health and of sound mind. She made me promise to deliver it only to you and only after her death." I touched the envelope. It felt heavy, like it was carrying more than paper. "What's inside?" a copy of her will, a personal letter, and a smaller sealed envelope she instructed you not to open unless, in her words, absolutely necessary. He looked directly at me. She said you would know when the time was right. My hands shook as I opened it. The will came first. I scanned the legal language until I found my name. I hereby bequeath the Anderson estate, along with all property and contents therein, to my granddaughter, Myra Anderson. I stopped breathing. The Anderson estate, Grandma Grace's mansion, the house where every holiday, every reunion, every major family event took place. The house Patricia had managed and decorated for 20 years as if it already belonged to her. "This can't be right," I said. "It's completely valid," Mr. Whitman replied. "3 independent attorneys witnessed the signing. There's also video documentation." "But why me?" He handed me the letter. "This may answer that." Then he added, "The will becomes public in 2 weeks. Your grandmother wanted you to have time." "Time for what?" His expression hardened. "To prepare for how your family might react once they know." I waited until midnight to read Grandma Grace's letter. My apartment was dark, except for a single lamp. Outside, Boston hummed with distant traffic. I unfolded the pages, her familiar handwriting filling the paper, and began. "My dearest Myra, if you're reading this, I'm gone. There are things I should have told you while I was still alive. I wasn't brave enough then, and for that, I'm sorry. First, understand this. I loved you from the moment I first held you. Not out of obligation, but because you were light in a family that had forgotten how to shine. Second, I'm sorry I didn't protect you better. I watched Patricia diminish you year after year, and I should have fought harder. I should have spoken up more. Third, and this is the hardest truth, you are not a stranger, Myra. You are not some child adopted out of convenience. You belong to this family more deeply than anyone ever told you. You are my blood, my real blood. I can't explain everything in this letter. The small envelope contains the full truth, documents, proof, everything you'll need when you're ready. Open it only when you must, when you're prepared to face what it means. Be brave, my dear girl. You are far stronger than they ever allowed you to believe. All my love, always, Grandma Grace." I read the letter again and again. You are my blood. What did that mean? I had been adopted. Patricia made sure I never forgot it. Yet Grandma Grace said I belonged. She said there was proof. I stared at the smaller envelope, still sealed, marked to be opened only when absolutely necessary. That night, I locked it in my safe. Something deep inside told me I would need it soon. What I didn't know then, what I wouldn't learn until much later, was that across town, Patricia was making plans of her own. I pieced it together afterward from what Aunt Helen told me and what I could gather from the aftermath. Patricia was pacing the living room. Jenna sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "I found out today," Patricia said, her voice tight, "about the will." Jenna looked up. "What will? Grandma's?" "She left the estate to Myra." Patricia's hands trembled. "All of it. The house, the land, everything." "What?" Jenna dropped her phone. "How is that even possible?" "It's legal. She did it years ago without telling anyone, and the will goes public in 2 weeks." "But Mom, that house, you've been decorating it for years. You've been planning." "I know," Patricia snapped, her jaw setting. "That's why we need to act now." "What do you mean?" Patricia stopped pacing. Her expression hardened. "The birthday party, 40 guests, everyone who matters." Jenna frowned. "I don't get it. Myra has spent 30 years trying to earn her place in this family. She's desperate to belong." Patricia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "If we humiliate her publicly, really humiliate her, she'll be too ashamed to show her face again. And once she's gone, contesting the will becomes much easier." Jenna hesitated. "Mom, that's a bit extreme." "That house was supposed to be yours, Jenna. Are you really going to let some adopted charity case take it?" The hesitation vanished from Jenna's face. "What do you need me to do?" They had no idea what Grandma Grace had left me, and they had no idea I was ready to use it. 1 week before the party, I was at Nordstrom doing something I rarely did, spending money on myself. I was buying a dress, something beautiful. If my family was truly throwing me a real birthday celebration, I wanted to feel like I belonged there. "The emerald one," a voice said behind me. "It'll bring out your eyes." I turned to see Lucas Smith, my closest friend at the firm, smiling. "Are you following me now?" I asked. "Saw you through the window," he said. "You looked like you were overthinking." He tilted his head. "Talk to me." So I did. I told him about the lawyer, the will, the letter. Not everything, not the part about blood, but enough. Lucas listened without interrupting. Then he said something I never forgot. Myra, you've walked into that family's traps your entire life. If there's even a chance this party is another one, he said seriously, don't go in empty-handed. What do you mean? Bring everything your grandmother left you, just in case. Lucas, I don't want to turn my birthday into a battle. You may not have a choice, he said, squeezing my shoulder. Just be prepared. That night, I laid everything out on my bed, the will, the letter, and the sealed envelope I still hadn't opened. The clutch I bought was small, barely enough space for a phone and lipstick, but just large enough for the truth. I slipped the envelope inside, telling myself it was only a precaution. I didn't realize then how right Lucas would be. I didn't know that in 7 days, I'd be standing in front of 40 people, and those documents would be the only thing standing between me and complete ruin. The sterling was stunning. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across white tablecloths. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glowing Boston skyline. A U-shaped banquet table filled the room, and at its center was a chair wrapped in ribbon. My chair. 40 guests were already there. Relatives I saw once a year. Friends of my parents. A few colleagues of mine. Patricia insisted I invite to make it all look convincing. Myra? Birthday girl. Patricia approached in a navy dress, arms wide. Her hug was stiff, her smile practiced. Thank you for all of this, I said. It's a lot. You deserve it, sweetheart. That word again. My father, Richard, appeared next, a brief handshake, eyes that avoided mine. Happy birthday, he said quietly, already stepping away. Jenna didn't bother greeting me. She stood in the corner with her phone raised, recording as if she were observing an exhibit. Then I saw Aunt Helen. She had flown in from California, which she rarely did. My father's sister, the only one who ever defended me when I was young. She crossed the room and hugged me tightly, warm and protective. Then she whispered something that made my blood run cold. Whatever happens tonight, remember your grandmother would be proud of you. I pulled back. What do you mean? Before she could answer, a server called everyone to their seats. I sat in my ribbon-wrapped chair, clutch in my lap, studying the faces around me. 40 witnesses. Whatever Patricia planned, she wanted an audience. Fine. If she wanted one, she'd have it. The envelope pressed against my thigh like a pulse. Dinner went smoothly at first. Salmon, asparagus, polite conversation. I almost relaxed. Then Patricia stood. She straightened her dress, walked to the podium, and tapped the microphone. The room went silent. Thank you all for being here tonight, she said smoothly. We're celebrating someone very special. Myra is turning 30. Applause followed. Smiles all around. I clenched my napkin under the table. 30 years, Patricia continued. It feels like just yesterday she came into our lives. Her tone shifted slightly, a sharp edge beneath the sweetness. I've been reflecting on Myra's journey, where she came from, and everything this family has done for her. The atmosphere changed. I felt it before I understood it. We've supported her through school, through her career, through everything, Patricia said, smiling wider. We've loved her like she was one of us. My stomach dropped. But, she paused, scanning the room, I think it's time we were honest. Murmurs spread among the guests. Confused looks were exchanged. I looked at my father. He stared at his plate, shoulders hunched. I looked at Jenna, still recording, smiling. For 30 years, Patricia announced, we've kept a secret. But secrets always come out. And tonight, on Myra's special day, she deserves to finally know the truth. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it. Across the table, Aunt Helen half stood, her face pale. Patricia, she said sharply, don't do this. Patricia ignored her. She turned directly to me, eyes gleaming. Myra, sweetheart, are you ready to hear the truth? Myra isn't our biological daughter. The words landed like an explosion. Gasps filled the room. 40 pairs of eyes turned toward me. She's adopted, Patricia continued, her voice edged with triumph. We took her in when she was 2. And do you know why? I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Tax benefits, Patricia laughed. The government had a great program back then. Adopt a child, get a nice deduction. Richard and I thought, why not? We could use the write-off. My ears rang. The room blurred. Somewhere to my left, Jenna laughed, sharp and cruel, echoing under the chandeliers. So there it is, Patricia said, spreading her arms as if concluding a performance. The truth? Myra was never really part of this family. She was a financial decision. Patricia turned toward me with exaggerated sympathy. I hope this doesn't upset you, sweetheart. But after 30 years of pretending, I thought you deserved honesty. I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't feel anything. 40 people were staring at me, some horrified, some uncomfortable, some openly pitying. One woman was already whispering to her husband. My father still hadn't moved. He hadn't looked up. He hadn't said a single word in my defense. Jenna lowered her phone just long enough to call out, "Happy birthday, sis," which triggered more laughter from somewhere in the room. The silence stretched on. Patricia waited. She was waiting for me to collapse, to cry, to run out in humiliation. That was what she expected. That was what she had planned. But then I felt it, the weight of the envelope inside my clutch. Grandma Grace's words echoed in my head. "Be brave, my darling." I took a breath and stood up. I didn't speak right away. I let the silence linger, letting 40 people register that I wasn't crying, wasn't leaving, wasn't doing anything Patricia had clearly rehearsed in her mind. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. "Thank you, Patricia, for that very informative speech." Her smile faltered. This was not how it was supposed to unfold. I looked around the room, at relatives who had treated me like background furniture for decades, at family friends who had watched Patricia diminish me and never intervened, at my father still staring at his plate, at Jenna still recording. Good. Let her record it all. "You're right about one thing," I said. "It is time for the truth." I reached into my clutch. Patricia's expression shifted. Uncertainty appeared in her eyes. "Myra, this really isn't—" "Oh, but it is." I pulled out the envelope, cream-colored, sealed with wax, Grandma Grace's initials stamped clearly. "You wanted to do this publicly, Patricia, in front of 40 witnesses, so let's do it properly." The room went completely still. I caught Aunt Helen's gaze. She gave me a small, almost invisible nod. "Your grandmother would be proud." I looked down at what I was holding. Everything Grandma Grace had saved for me. Everything she wanted me to know. For one brief moment, I considered putting it away, walking out, taking the high road. Then I remembered every Christmas where I sat quietly in the corner. Every forgotten birthday. Every introduction where Jenna came first and I came second. 30 years of being made to feel like I didn't belong. No more. "Ready, Patricia?" I asked calmly. "For the truth?" Her face had gone pale. 2 weeks ago, I began, my voice carrying across the room, I received a call from Theodore Whitman, an estate attorney. Some of you may know him. He handled my grandmother's affairs. Patricia went rigid. He had documents for me. Documents my grandmother prepared 5 years ago when she was healthy, clear-minded, and fully aware of her decisions. I held up the envelope. This is a certified copy of her will, witnessed by 3 independent attorneys and fully legal. "Myra," Patricia said sharply, "this isn't the place for this." "This is exactly the place," I replied evenly. "You made it the place when you called me a tax write-off in front of everyone I know." Several guests shifted in their chairs. Someone coughed. "So let's talk about truth," I continued. "You seem to value it so much." I opened the envelope. Jenna had lowered her phone. Her smile was gone. My father finally looked up. His face had turned gray. I pulled out the first document. "Do you want to know what this says?" Patricia's eyes were wide now with something I had never seen before: fear. It states that Grandma Grace left me the Anderson estate. The house, the land, the contents, everything. The room erupted into whispers. "That's impossible," Patricia started. "It's entirely legal," I said calmly, cutting her off. "I can quote the language word for word if you'd like." Her mouth opened, then closed. Nothing came out. "But here's the thing," I continued composed. "The house isn't even the most interesting part." I watched the color drain from her face. "Do you want to tell them, Patricia?" I asked. "Or should I?" Let me pause here for a moment. If you've made it this far and want to know what else was in that envelope, tap like and drop a comment telling me what you think Grandma Grace's secret was. I read every comment, and trust me, what I'm about to reveal is far more shocking than anything you're guessing. Now back to the story. Patricia tried to regain control. "Myra, this isn't the time or place to discuss estate matters." "Not the time?" I let out a quiet laugh. "You just told 40 people I was a tax deduction. You don't get to decide timing anymore." Uncomfortable murmurs spread through the room. "This is a family issue," Patricia said, stepping toward me. "We should handle this privately." "No." My voice didn't waver. You wanted an audience. You have one. She turned desperately to my father. Richard, say something. Every eye moved to him. Richard Anderson, the man who had been my father for 30 years without ever truly acting like one, slowly lifted his head. Pat, he said quietly, maybe we should let Myra finish. Patricia looked stunned. Richard? I'm tired, he said, his voice breaking. I've been tired for a very long time. Jenna stared at him in disbelief. The room fell silent again. I hadn't expected that. 30 years of watching my father avoid conflict, of watching him look away while Patricia made me invisible, and now finally he was pushing back. It didn't fix everything, but something had shifted. Patricia stood alone at the podium. No allies left. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Shall I continue? I asked. No one objected. Good. I pulled out the second document, Grandma Grace's handwritten letter. Because you haven't heard the most important part yet. Patricia's face was completely white now. She knew. I could see it. I held up the will again so everyone could see. This document is certified, notarized, legally binding, and prepared 5 years ago by Theodore Whitman, my grandmother's personal attorney. It states that the Anderson estate, house, land, and all contents passes to me, Myra Anderson. Gasps rippled through the room. That property has been in the family for 60 years, I continued. Grandma Grace lived there her entire married life. I looked directly at Patricia. She left it to me. Not to you. Not to Jenna. To me. That's impossible, Patricia stammered. I've maintained that house for 20 years. Maintained it? I tilted my head. Or redecorated it as if it already belonged to you? Someone in the back stifled a laugh. The will includes a statement, I said, reading aloud. I make this decision because Myra is the only person in this family who loved me for who I was, not for what I owned. Patricia's face twisted. That senile old woman had no right. Careful, I said quietly. That's my grandmother. Aunt Helen stood. The will is valid, Patricia. I witnessed it myself. More gasps, more whispers. Patricia spun toward her. You knew. Mother was fully lucid. Aunt Helen replied coolly. Sharper than any of us. She knew exactly what she was doing. I let the moment settle. Then I said slowly, but the house still isn't the most important part. Patricia's eyes widened. There's more, someone whispered. Much more. I unfolded Grandma Grace's letter. My grandmother wrote this by hand. It explains something that changes everything. The room was so quiet I could hear the chandelier crystals lightly tapping. I read aloud. My dearest Myra, you are not a stranger adopted by chance. You are not a charity case or a tax benefit. You are my blood, my real blood. You are my granddaughter, the daughter of Marcus, my firstborn son. Chaos broke out. Voices overlapped. Marcus? Who's Marcus? Patricia clutched the podium. That's a lie, she said weakly. Marcus was Richard's older brother, Aunt Helen said clearly. He died when Myra was 2. Every head turned toward her. He struggled with addiction. Our parents disowned him and erased him from the family. Her voice carried old grief. When Marcus died, Mother was devastated. He left behind a 2-year-old daughter who needed a home. She looked at me. Mother begged Richard to take her in, to keep Marcus's child in the family. I could barely breathe. Richard had tears running down his face. You're my niece, Myra, Aunt Helen said gently. You always have been. I turned to Patricia. You knew. It wasn't a question. She said nothing. Her silence was enough. 30 years, I said, my voice shaking slightly. You made me feel like an outsider for 30 years, when I had more right to be here than you ever did. Patricia opened her mouth, but I wasn't finished. And that's still not everything. I reached into the envelope and pulled out the smaller sealed packet, the one I hadn't opened until tonight. Grandma Grace had written on it, only open when necessary. My grandmother left me one more thing, I said. She told me to open it when I truly needed it. I looked at Patricia, at her pale face, her trembling hands. I think now qualifies. Patricia lunged forward. Myra, wait. Whatever's in there, we can talk about this privately. Privately? I pulled it out of her reach. Like how you privately planned to humiliate me tonight? Like how you privately recorded it so you could share my shame? She froze. Yes, I continued. I figured it out. I glanced at Jenna, who was frantically trying to stop her recording. You thought if you embarrassed me enough, I'd disappear. Then you could challenge the will without resistance. Patricia's mouth moved, but no sound came out. It doesn't matter how I know, I said, carefully breaking the seal. What matters is what's inside. I pulled out two items, a DNA test dated 28 years ago and an old photograph, its edges worn with time. I studied them, my hands shaking, not with fear, but with understanding finally falling into place. Grandma Grace kept detailed records, I said quietly. Very detailed. I looked at Patricia. Would you like to explain these, or should I? 40 people held their breath. I held up the DNA test. This was done when I was 2 years old, while Marcus, my father, was still alive. It confirms I am his biological daughter. Then I looked again at the result that had stunned me the first time. But there's something else, I said. Something about Marcus himself. Patricia made a broken sound. Marcus Anderson, I read clearly, was not biologically related to Harold Anderson, the man listed as his father. The room erupted. What does that mean? Someone called out. It means, Aunt Helen said quietly, that our mother had Marcus before she married our father. He was from a previous relationship. Harold adopted him when they wed, but Marcus was never a biological Anderson. I let it sink in. Marcus wasn't Harold's biological son. I was Marcus's biological daughter, which meant I paused. The Anderson family had no blood claim to Grandma Grace's estate. Her property came from her bloodline, not Harold's. I held up the photograph, a faded image of a young woman holding a baby. Same eyes, same smile. You married into a family, I told Patricia, that has no connection to this inheritance. The estate belongs to Grandma Grace's bloodline. I lifted the photo higher. And that bloodline is me. Patricia swayed. You spent 30 years making me feel like I didn't belong, I said, but I'm the only one here who actually does. Someone started clapping, then another. Half the room joined. I didn't smile. I wasn't seeking applause. I was demanding truth, and the truth was finally free. Patricia attempted one final attack. This is ridiculous. That will can be contested. These documents could be forged. They're not forged, I said. Aunt Helen stepped forward. I have video of Mother signing the will. I have the original DNA results in a safety deposit box, and I have 20 years of documentation of exactly how you treated Myra. Patricia whirled on Richard. Richard, are you just going to sit there? Let them attack your own wife? Every eye turned to him. Slowly, Richard stood. For the first time all evening, he looked Patricia in the eye. Myra is my niece, he said quietly. My brother's daughter. She's always been family. His voice cracked. And I've spent 30 years watching you tear her down, make her feel worthless, and I never stopped you. I never protected her. He turned to me. I'm sorry, Myra. I'm so deeply sorry. I nodded. I couldn't speak yet. Patricia looked around desperately, at guests avoiding her gaze, at Jenna crying silently, watching the collapse of the perfect image she'd built for decades. This isn't over, she hissed. I'll fight this. You'll lose, I said calmly. The will is airtight. The evidence is documented, and everyone here just heard you call your adopted niece a tax benefit. I stepped closer. You wanted to humiliate me, Patricia. You wanted to make me disappear, but all you did was reveal exactly who you are. Her face crumpled. For the first time in 30 years, she had nothing to say. I let myself breathe. Anger still coiled in my chest, but I refused to become her. I didn't want revenge. I wanted something better. I didn't come here to destroy anyone, I said. I came hoping, maybe foolishly, that this was actually a birthday celebration. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. You tried to take something from me tonight, Patricia. My dignity, my sense of belonging. But here's what you never understood. I looked at her steadily. I don't need your permission to know my own worth. I never did. I just spent 30 years believing I did. I gathered the documents and returned them to my clutch. The estate is legally mine, but I wasn't throwing anyone out. That house meant something to Grandma Grace. She loved the people in it. Even you, Patricia, though I can't imagine why. Patricia blinked. She hadn't expected mercy, but everything changes now. My voice hardened. I will not tolerate being treated as if I don't matter. Not anymore. From this moment forward, I set the boundaries, not you. I turned to Aunt Helen. I have questions about Marcus, about Grandma Grace, about everything I was never told. She smiled through her tears. I'll tell you everything, sweetheart. I looked around the room one final time. Thank you all for coming to my birthday party. It's been educational. A nervous laugh rippled through the crowd. I picked up my clutch, straightened my dress, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard rapid, panicked heels. Patricia was leaving, running from her own party exactly as I had predicted. I didn't watch her go. I heard the sharp click, click, click of her heels on marble, the rustle of her coat, the heavy thud of the restaurant door. She was gone. Jenna stood paralyzed for a moment, mascara streaking her cheeks. Then she grabbed her bag and ran after her mother without looking at anyone. My father approached slowly. Myra, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything right now, I said. No, he insisted. 30 years. 30 years I watched her do this to you and I said nothing. I should have. He couldn't finish. You're right, I said quietly. You should have, but you spoke tonight. That counts for something. I met his eyes. It's not enough, not yet, but it's a start. He nodded, wiping his face with the back of his hand. I need to go after her. Make sure she's... He trailed off. Marcus would have been proud of you, Myra. I know I have no right to say that, but he would have. Then he was gone, too. The room slowly exhaled. Aunt Helen wrapped her arms around me. Your grandmother is smiling right now, she whispered. I promise you. I let myself be held. For the first time in 30 years, I cried. Not from pain, not from humiliation, but from release. Someone started humming Happy Birthday. Another voice joined. Then the whole room, soft and tentative. I laughed through my tears. Happy birthday to me. The best one I'd ever had. The party didn't end when Patricia fled. Somehow, impossibly, it actually began. People I'd barely spoken to approached me one by one. Mrs. Patterson, Grandma Grace's longtime friend, squeezed my hands. I always sensed something was wrong with how Pat treated you. Your grandmother loved you constantly. You were her favorite. Mr. Henderson, a family friend since before I was born, shook my hand firmly. That took guts, young lady. Real guts. Lucas appeared at my elbow with 2 glasses of champagne. Doing okay? Honestly, I have no idea. I accepted the glass. I think I'm still processing. You were phenomenal, he said. He clinked his glass against mine. Absolutely phenomenal. Aunt Helen pulled up a chair and began talking about Marcus, her brother, whose addiction had stolen him from us, his talent, his kindness, the way his face lit up holding baby Myra. He wasn't perfect, she admitted. He made mistakes, but he loved you more than anything. His last months, all he talked about was making sure you'd have a good life. I learned things I'd never known. That Marcus had painted, that a portrait of infant me was kept in Grandma Grace's bedroom closet, that his addiction began after a car accident left him in constant pain. He wasn't a villain, Aunt Helen said softly. He was hurting. There's a difference. By midnight, the guests who remained were there because they wanted to be. For me. Happy birthday, Myra, someone called. I raised my glass. You know what? It finally is. 2 weeks after the party, the fallout spread. Patricia vanished from social circles. No charity luncheons, no garden clubs, no curated social appearances. Someone had leaked the story. Boston's upper-middle-class gossip network ran with it. Jenna lost over 8,000 Instagram followers in 5 days. Brands distanced themselves quietly. Turns out, people don't buy skincare from someone who laughed at their sister's humiliation. Then Richard called. We met at a coffee shop far from the family's usual haunts. He looked 10 years older. I need to tell you about Marcus, he said. And he did. How Marcus had been the golden child, brilliant and loved, until the accident and addiction swallowed him. How our parents pretended he didn't exist. How Grandma Grace never forgave them, or herself, but saved me. She made me promise to raise you as my own, Richard said. I did, but I failed at the rest. I let Patricia control everything. Let you feel unwanted. Why? Because I was a coward, afraid of confrontation, afraid of Patricia, afraid of everything. I didn't forgive him that day. I wasn't ready, but I didn't walk away either. This isn't the end, I said, but it might be a start. He nodded, tears streaming. Baby steps, that's all any of us can take sometimes. I know this story is heavy. If you've ever had to set boundaries with toxic family members, if you've ever felt like an outsider in your own home, drop a comment and share your story. I read every single one. Knowing I'm not alone helps more than I can say. 2 weeks later, I visited the estate. Patricia and Jenna had moved out, leaving the house intact. I walked slowly through the rooms, the parlor, the dining room, the garden. I climbed to Grandma Grace's bedroom. It still smelled like her, lavender and old books. In her closet, I found a worn cardboard box. Inside were photographs. Marcus as a child, Marcus painting, Marcus holding a newborn me. On the back of the last photo in Grandma Grace's handwriting, Marcus and Myra, my two greatest loves, 1994. I pressed the photo to my chest and sobbed. Seeing him, I saw myself, the same eyes, the same crooked smile. The house was silent, but for the first time, it felt like home. 3 weeks after the party, my phone rang. Jenna, my instinct said ignore, but curiosity won. Please don't hang up, she said immediately. Can we meet somewhere neutral? I need to talk. At the coffee shop, she looked smaller, tired, casual. I'm not here to apologize, though I should be. I need to understand why Grandma loved you more. I blinked. She always looked at you differently. I thought it was guilt over you being an orphan, but it wasn't. You were actually her granddaughter by blood. Jenna laughed bitterly. And I was the consolation prize. Mom told me my whole life I was the real daughter, but maybe I never knew where I stood. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she continued, but is there any chance we could start over? I considered her. The door isn't closed, I said, but you'll have to earn your way through it. She nodded. It was the beginning of something. I just didn't know what yet. 1 month after the party, I made a boundary list. Patricia, no contact, estate off limits, communication through attorneys only. Richard, limited contact, slowly rebuilding trust. Jenna, wait and see. She showed cracks, but I needed sustained evidence of real change. Aunt Helen and true family, open connection. I made small changes to the estate, honoring Grandma Grace. Her bedroom became a memorial space. Photographs, Marcus artwork, the portrait of infant me. Then I created the Marcus Anderson Memorial Scholarship Fund for kids aging out of foster care who wanted to study art or architecture. The first recipient, a 17-year-old girl named Maya, had been in the system since age 9. She could draw like no one I'd ever seen. At the ceremony, she tugged on my sleeve. Did you ever feel like you didn't belong anywhere? Every single day, I admitted, until I stopped waiting for permission. I smiled at her. You don't need anyone's permission, Maya. Neither did I. She hugged me. It felt like hope. 6 months later, I held a memorial at the estate, not a funeral. A celebration, a remembrance, a closing of chapters and opening of new ones. The guest list was intimate. Aunt Helen, Richard, slowly rebuilding himself, Lucas, Mrs. Patterson, a few of Grandma Grace's oldest friends, and Maya. No Patricia, no Jenna, not yet, maybe never. I arranged photographs on the mantle. This is where the story stands. Boundaries set, truth revealed, and a family rebuilt. Not by blood alone, but by love, honesty, and courage. Grandma Grace on her wedding day, young, radiant. Marcus at 20, paintbrush in hand, eyes full of dreams he'd never fulfill. And the photo of him holding me, the one I'd found hidden in the closet. I spoke first. Most of my life, I didn't know who I was. I knew I was adopted. I knew I was different. I knew I didn't fit. My voice held steady, but I didn't know I had a father who loved me, a grandmother who fought for me, a history that was truly mine. I looked at the photographs. Grandma Grace had spent her final years making sure I'd learn the truth, that I'd have the tools to defend myself when the time came. She couldn't protect me completely while she lived, but she found a way afterward. I lit 2 candles, one for her, one for Marcus. I never met my father, but he's part of me. I see him every time I look in the mirror. Richard was weeping openly. Aunt Helen held my hand. To Grace, I said softly, and to Marcus, I hope you're together now. To Grace and Marcus, everyone echoed. The candles flickered like heartbeats. I smiled through my tears. The official launch of the Marcus Anderson Memorial Scholarship made local news. The estate had been transformed for the event, not unrecognizable, but new, warm, welcoming. The kind of home Marcus might have built if he'd had the chance. A modest crowd gathered, arts education advocates, former foster youth, local journalists, and at the center, 10 young artists displaying their work, each a scholarship recipient. I stood at the podium, looking at faces full of hope. My father never got a second chance, I said. He struggled, and when he reached out for help, he was turned away, disowned, erased. I took a breath. I don't want any child to feel erased. I don't want any artist to believe their dreams aren't worth fighting for. I gestured to the scholarship recipients. These young people aren't charity cases. They're not tax deductions. A knowing laugh rippled through the crowd. They're the future, and they deserve every opportunity to shine. Afterward, Maya, the first recipient, tugged my sleeve. Miss Anderson, can I ask you something? Always. Did you ever feel like no matter what you did, People would always see you as less. I knelt to her level. Every day of my life, until I learned something important. What? Their opinion of me wasn't my truth. My truth was mine to create. I smiled. And so is yours. She hugged me quickly, fiercely. Thank you, she whispered, for making me feel like I matter. You do matter, Maya. You always have. The cameras flashed, but I wasn't thinking about coverage. I was thinking about legacy, how it doesn't end, it transforms. That night, I sat alone in Grandma Grace's room. The candles from the memorial still flickered on the mantel. The photographs watched over me. Outside, Boston glittered against a clear winter sky. I thought about what had changed, what I'd lost, the fantasy of a loving family, the delusion that if I tried hard enough, Patricia would accept me, the version of myself that bent, broke, and begged to fit into a space never meant for me. What I'd gained: truth, identity, real connections with people who chose me. Aunt Helen, Richard in his imperfect way, friends who showed up, freedom from seeking validation I would never receive, and something harder to name: peace. I looked at the photo of Marcus. I wish you could see me now. I think you'd be proud. The candle flame danced as if in response. Grandma Grace had taught me something profound through her final gift. You can't force people to love you. You can't contort yourself into belonging somewhere that refuses to hold space for you. But you can build a life where you belong to yourself first, where your worth isn't a verdict handed down by others. That's what I'd finally done. I picked up my phone and typed a note. Things I know for certain. I am worthy of love, my own first. I don't need permission to belong. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're self-preservation. The people who matter will choose you. Release the ones who don't. I saved it. Then I stood, blew out the candles, and walked toward my future. Behind me, the house settled into quiet. I was finally home. Here's what I've learned. After everything that happened, I spent time trying to understand Patricia. Not to forgive her, I'm not there yet, but to make sense of it. A therapist explained it this way. People like Patricia don't hate you because something's wrong with you. They hate you because you represent something they can't face in themselves. Marcus was the family's secret, the failure they wanted to erase. Every time Patricia looked at me, she saw him. She saw everything the Anderson name wanted buried. Her cruelty wasn't really about me. It was about her fear. Fear of losing control, fear of exposure, fear of not measuring up. She managed it by making me small, making me the problem instead of examining herself. That doesn't excuse a single thing she did. Not even close. But understanding it helped me stop blaming myself. My weakness was always believing I had to earn love. I spent 30 years auditioning for acceptance, performing, bending, shrinking, trying to prove I deserved a seat at a table that would never welcome me. The truth is, you don't prove you're worthy of love. You simply are. If you're watching this and you're trapped in a relationship, family, romantic, friendship, where you constantly feel like you have to justify your existence, ask yourself, why am I performing? And for who? The people who genuinely love you will never make you audition for it. That's the lesson. That's what 30 years of pain crystallized into clarity. NCTA. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If any of it resonated, if you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, had to draw lines you were terrified to draw, or discovered a truth that rebuilt everything, I want to hear about it. Leave a comment. I read every single one, and you're not alone. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe, not for the algorithm, but because if you're still here, you probably understand what it means to fight for your own worth. I want to keep sharing stories like this with people like you. Check the description for more. And remember, you don't need anyone's permission to belong. You never did. See you in the next one.